What's a psychic? Well, where does the word come from? Uh, comes from the Greek psyche. It's a word that means pretty much means human consciousness. It means mind, unconscious and conscious mind. Now, psychology is the scientific study of the psyche, right? And that's of personality or mind. So, psyche is pretty much consciousness itself, conscious and unconscious. Now, a psychic, we have to define our terms. What is a psychic? Well, a psychic is like a mechanic works on machines. So a psychic works on consciousness, works with consciousness, like a mechanic works on machines. Now, some psychic phenomena are considered supernatural. Some people have great innate talents for clairvoyance and channeling and mediumship. I'm not that kind of psychic. I am an artist, first and foremost. I have painted millions of paintings and drawn many drawings. I know 400 folk songs that I play on my acoustic guitar and sing. I got all the words and stuffed up in my head. I've written 30 books nobody's read. You know, I live and breathe myth, symbolic reality, I call it, all the time. I'm an artist of symbolic reality, for and foremost. And that's how I define myself. I don't call myself a psychic, but I have done a great study of consciousness. Been my life's obsession to study consciousness. And that meant started with my Roman Catholic heritage, which I love still to this day. I love the symbols of the Mass and the murals and candles and the whole thing. You know, I was an altar boy. You know, I wanted to be a priest when I was a kid. Um, but then I discovered Hinduism. I was Pentecostal. I hung out with the Pentecostals for a while when I was a young teenager. But soon I followed the Beatles to India and never looked back. Hinduism, Taoism, Buddhism just took me over. And, you know, the study of consciousness and meditation allows you to take a look at yourself. And the whole idea of be here now and plug it into the present moment. And then, you know, I was always fascinated with dreams. And I discovered synchronicity. Synchronicity is meaningful coincidence. When something happens in the outside world that has a personal meaning to you. And I began to experience that, and I had some very dramatic ones. And I also began to, at times, forecast future events. Like the day John Lennon died, I said to a friend, on the day John Lennon dies, then I'll be old. I'll give myself a cabin in the woods and rock my life away, because then my life will be over. He died 3 hours later that day. So things started happening. I sensed ghosts. I could, you know, the more you look into the magic, the more the magic looks into you. The more you see that power, the more it sees you. And I began to have this relationship with what I call the poetic mind of the universe. Then I walked into a head shop in 1978, and there was a tarot card deck sitting there, the Aquarian Tarot. So I picked it up and I loved it. A beautiful woman in college that I knew, a beautiful dancer, Lori Belanger. She opened up the I-Ching to me. I threw the I-Ching. I got the first chapter, The Creative. Your power comes from the center of the universe. So I am an artist, first and foremost, but I'm an artist of symbolic reality. And I can do just what my brain does, what everybody's brain does at night when we sleep. I can shuffle up the conscious and unconscious mind depicted in these symbolic cards. That's what these cards are. There's 78 cards that are symbolic representations of the whole range of consciousness, from the most spiritual and powerful archetypes that Carl Jung would call archetypes, like the devil, or the emperor, or the empress, or the major arcana. They're the major archetypes of the deep unconscious mind. And then the four suits of the tarot have to do with human concerns. And that's just what your mind does. It takes your thoughts during the day and it shuffles them all up, from the deepest unconscious, eternal parts of ourselves to the most mundane thoughts about our relationships with people or whatever, our wishes, our dreams. It all gets shuffled up together, and then our mind makes a mind play out of it. It's the same thing I do. I shuffle up the cards, I lay them out, I look at them. The symbols relate to each other, and it tells me a story. I tell that story to my callers by describing the cards and what I think they mean. And, inevitably, the best readings will be the people that say, oh, you're talking about Uncle Frank. Well, okay, I don't know nothing about Uncle Frank, but if it means Uncle Frank to you, then you got the key. So now you know the situation's got something to do with Uncle Frank. Take it from there. If I mention now a woman that's involved with Uncle Frank, that might be Aunt Annie. Then you can plug in the details yourself. I'll describe it to you in symbolic terms, just like your mind does. Your mind doesn't make dreams that are just, the facts. It dresses them up. Well, the tarot does the same thing. And it's amazing because I tell people stuff's going to happen. It's going to happen. Now, it might not happen just exactly like I said it would. And it might not happen at the time I said it would. You got to be patient sometimes, especially if you're not doing anything to meet that fate halfway. If you stay locked up in your room, don't blame me if the reading doesn't come true, because you got to participate. This isn't a free ride. You got to do your bit. But if you follow the advice that I'm giving you, you'll most likely unravel the positive fate that I've laid out for you. Because the cards are only going to tell you the best thing for you. They're not going to tell you what's bad. I don't believe they can. I don't believe they should. It doesn't do any good. I don't usually read reverse cards. I like the Aquarian deck, and the book that went with it said that you don't read the cards upside down, and I do. If the cards come out upside down, it's fine. I let that go. I'll do that. I often go through though and make them all right side up because I want to be positive. I don't want to, and if there's some negative news, I will give you negative news. But I don't believe in evil. I honestly don't believe in negativity. I think it's only an apparent dramatic function of the universe. It doesn't really exist. We make it exist by our fears and our lack of faith. If we had true faith, if we were reunited with our angelic being that lives in the first creation, that's who we are, and we are it, very much, very similar to this angelic being, I believe, that lives in the perfect creation. We are that being. But we're also an infinity of beings stretched out through all the infinities of infinities. There's a billion Anthonys out there, all across the multiverse. And this is, you start opening up your mind to the fact that, yeah, I'm a particle of matter right now. But in quantum physics terms, I'm also a limitless wave potential of consciousness that's limitless and immortal. And I can't wait to remember that consciousness when I pass from this world to the next. And I enjoy contacting that world. Psychic sources help me to develop that kind of gift, that gift side of my gift, and become more intuitive, a psychic. I've learned to listen to my first thought. There's a very subtle first thought that often comes that if you can grab it, it's right on. So it's very elusive though. It's like a dream memory. It can slip away from you. And sometimes you can really mess up that way. Because I got to admit, hey man, you don't call a plumber and expect him to be 100%. If he messes up, he messes up. Come on. Nobody's 100%. I'm not. Edgar Cayce was 80%. He was the greatest psychic that ever lived in the modern era, anyway. You know, and I think I have as much in common with Carl Jung as a psychologist or Joseph Campbell as a cultural mythologist than I do with Edgar Cayce or George Anderson, the medium, one of the best mediums I've ever seen. He is a great medium, and he uses the same kind of thing I do. He sees symbols, he feels things in his body, and I started to realize I have this ability too because I've studied a lot. But George, he had a brain abnormality when he was a child. He's a great medium, but the scientists hooked up electrodes to his brain to see what he was doing, and he's a great medium, and his brain, because of a childhood illness, has an abnormality where it stays in the dream state even when he's conscious. So he can use the dream state to contact people in the spirit world because the dream state that we all have at night when our bodies shut down is a tourist visit to the afterlife. We go there every night. And then when we get back and we wake up, our conscious mind makes it into this theatrical representation of our experience because the ego can't really handle it. It's too much, it's too far beyond physical life for it to understand. So it makes up symbols to try to at least remember the experience somehow through symbols. And that's what I do. That's pretty much what I do. Uh, So I don't like the word psychic because it implies somebody who's a fake. And I'm not a fake. I kind of consider myself like a biblical scholar. You know, a biblical scholar understands the myths and symbols in the Bible. Well, I studied the Bible, love it. Great, great stuff. Believe me, there is lots of mythic treasure and potent poetic wisdom in the Bible. No doubt about it. Probably some of the greatest poetic wisdom the West has ever made. But the Tao Te Ching and the I-Ching from Taoism is pretty damn good too. And the Bhagavad Gita from Hinduism, the songs of Samsara, and the teachings of Buddha, and, you know, it's all good to me. Because I don't believe in an exclusive right on truth. All truths are true to me. And each culture has a little bit of that truth to give, to share. But I don't like the word psychic because it implies a charlatan. Somebody's trying to scam you. And I'm not a scam. Now, I imagine there are plenty of psychics out there that are scams, and I've heard of them. But I also heard one story about a woman who was arrested for fortune telling in Alabama, I think it was, something like that, maybe Tennessee. But it was in, you know, kind of conservative area. And she came before the judge, and the judge was like, well, there's only one way I can make a judgment about this. I'm going to have a reading. So the woman did a reading for the guy. And the judge came down with the verdict. He said, I don't know how she did it, but she knew things she should not have known about me. She didn't know me personally. I don't have any idea of her. She has no idea of me. But she told me very personal things that she should not have known. I can't charge her with a crime. And he let her go. So, I'm the real deal. I'm not going to claim to have extraordinary powers I don't have. That's not what I'm doing. But I speak with authority about my tarot cards because I have forecasted things, good and bad, that have come true, that were amazingly specific. And I've seen it time and time again. So I don't have any doubt. I've also seen a million coincidences that there's no way they could have happened without a poetic mind behind it trying to send me a message. I mean, I could tell you amazing tales. And I will if you let me sit here long enough. But I think for all intents and purposes, that's my answer. I am an artist of symbolic reality first and foremost, and I have seen that, and I have sensed spirits, and I do know a lot about the spirit world, and I'm beginning to become a better and better medium as we go along. It's something that's an art that, like all arts, take a lifetime to master. But I'm getting on. I'm 58 years old, so getting pretty good. And thank you very much for listening. And I hope I pass the audition. I had to get John Lennon in there somehow. All right. Thanks a lot.